Hello, 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 everyone. It's Dr. Sashim. Let's just bring that a little bit closer. Welcome back. It's Thursday. If you're catching this video as it drops, welcome to Thursday, where I teach, talk, and guide on this podcast, which is called Women in Transition, where we practice the rules. And if you don't know what they are, check the pin video on this on the channel, and you'll understand the new rules of engagement. I'm Dr. Sashim, your host, talking to you today about I think, a very important topic, especially given the circumstances of the world right now and how it can be very easy to stay inside an echo chamber, which is not actually helping you move forward in a way that you need to. Now, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, this is Women in Transition podcast, and I talk to women, usually women in their Gen X years, about getting from one stage to the next and everything that comes with making that transition into the next best chapter of our lives. So we talk about lots of things on this channel, but we keep it very real. We keep it very much we're moving forward and not looking back. We've got enough skills and life experiences to know what we need to do and how to get there, but sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance along the way. I work specifically with divorced women. So if you're a woman going through divorce and you're looking for a little bit of assistance in a very tumultuous transitionary time, check the comments as well and get on my books and let's talk about it. If nothing else, pick up the free guide that I have put out for you. All right. I have more spiels. We'll save those spiels for after because I want to talk to you about very important things, which is you got to get out of your echo chamber today. Here's what I mean by that. Echo chambers are the place where we go to get confirmation about what we already believe to be true about the world, in all kinds of aspects of the world. And because of that, we just surround ourselves with people who make us comfortable in whatever belief it is that we're holding. And when you're a woman in transition, when life is throwing you curveballs, when things are changing, when the ground beneath our feet is no longer solid and feels more like quicksand, it can be very easy, very, very easy to gravitate towards people who reinforce the quicksand instead of finding ways to get out of that quicksand by asking maybe hard questions or looking at our lives a little more critically to figure out why we're in quicksand and how we can get out of it. So I was talking today, I was having a conversation, which is kind of what sparked this, about what it means in a time of systemic crisis, which the world is in now. And I don't skate around what's happening in the world, even as I'm talking to you about issues that are much more personal and individual. But one of the things that I find to be very hard sometimes is that people want you to talk about things only in certain ways. And if no one comes along and pushes you to say, hey, hey, hang on a second, hold on, wait a second. Like I agree with whatever it is that you want to talk about in the way you want to talk about it. But have you considered this way over here as well? Like maybe two things could be true at the same time. And what I find is that right now, especially in a very heightened time when people's emotions are really right beneath the surface, and so in fact, they're so close to the surface that it's muting the ability to critically think sometimes. I find that people don't want to hear that there are potentially multiple paths forward through systemic collapse and chaos, right? That there's not just one way to get through the moment. And some of those pathways through are more personal than others. Some are meant to be more personal and some have to be more personal. Sorry, it's like right here, drives me crazy. So I want to talk a little bit, I'm not here for a long time. I'm just here for a good time. I want to talk about why I think that we need to start asking ourselves who, who we're hanging out with. Now, if you've been on my channel long enough, I talk about relationships all the time. As women who've reached a certain age, we've had a fair amount of relationships in our life. And one of the things that I say is that we um are going to die because being so loyal to people who do not have our best interests at heart. That's where the echo chamber effect really starts to come into play because we surround ourselves with people who don't push back against us either. So we are being used by certain people, not everybody now, like come on, but we are being used by certain people to for their agenda, but they're also furthering our comfort. because this is a battle between the comfort zone and the critical call out zone, where you have to take a look around and ask some very pertinent questions about where your life is going to go next. And sometimes when we look around and everybody's answer is exactly the same, and it matches the answer that makes us the most comfortable, we don't look any further because we assume we're in the right place, right? Now, if you're that kind of person who holds ideological beliefs that would put my humanity, that subsumes my humanity for your superiority, my channel is not the one for you. So you need to go find someplace else. I'm not talking to those people. I am talking to the people, to the women especially out there who understand that there are many ways to get to the next best chapter of my life, but the way that I've been going might feel comfortable, but it actually isn't the best way to get to the next chapter. It might have served me well, but I've stopped asking, is there more? I've stopped wondering if life has something new to offer. I've stopped being curious about the possibilities that there are multiple ways to get down the road because I've been in this car, the same car with the same driver for such a long time that it's just comfortable. It's just comfortable. I would argue that in some ways, our social isolation has a lot to do with our comfort levels at this point. We've gotten comfortable with the idea that we're just supposed to stay in isolation because that is what everyone is doing. Everyone is saying the same things. We are tired, we are overwhelmed, and these are not illegitimate feelings. These are absolutely not illegitimate feelings to be feeling, especially at this moment in time when so much of the world has gone crazy. And honestly, since 2020, we have been in one very long emergency, right? A long emergency. But here's what I want to say to that. Being in a long emergency breeds stagnation of will. It breeds a stagnation of desire. It breeds a stagnation of movement. Because we're constantly in survival, we don't think about living anymore. I put a post up yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to look at it on the channel, go to the community tab and there's a new post there. But I said in the post, you have survived 100% of everything that the world has thrown at you up to this point. But do you really need to keep surviving over and over and over again, or is it time to start asking the question of how do I live differently so that I'm not just surviving everything that gets thrown at me. I am living the kind of life that I want to be living. And that's what I'm really asking you. Like being in the long emergency of this particular time period, which I would argue has started right around 2020, COVID came in and the world shut down, and we haven't ever really come out of that mindset of being locked away in a box and with someone who said you can't go anywhere because we're trying to keep you alive. I'm not knocking what happened. I'm not castigating the administration necessarily for the choices that had to be made to keep the country safe. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is that mentally we stepped into that emergency and we didn't really step out in a way that allowed people to go, okay, that was really hard. And I didn't do really well. And I don't think I've recovered very well from it either. And unfortunately, that echo chamber of voices that are like, but that was really hard and it's still really hard and we just have to keep surviving is very loud. And so now that we're in the midst of the next step of that emergency process, there's no body around you saying, okay, it is hard. Yes, hard, 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 hard right here. But then there's a little bit easier possibility over here, maybe? Could you just turn your face and look over here at a possibility that maybe the hard that has been hard for so long isn't as hard as it was, but you can't see that because you're still caught with people who can only see the hard and they're reinforcing for you that it's just hard. But there are people who are saying it is hard, but there's a way to kind of move around the hard and it gets a little easier. You got a little more wiggle room than you think. Instead, we get really mad and we say things like, I can't believe that you all aren't talking 24/7 about X, Y, and Z. Echo chambers. Echo chambers keep us stagnant and unable to see a fresh perspective, one that might actually solve a problem as opposed to, excuse me, as opposed to just complaining about a problem, as opposed to just continually rehashing the problem. We attribute to Einstein, I believe, the idea that repeating the same thing over and over and expecting the different result is the definition of insanity. And yet, look around your life and ask yourself, how many conversations that are you having that are literally keeping you in the same place over and over and over again, because the people around you aren't gently pushing against the narratives and saying, but is there another way? Is there anyone in your life right now that's saying, is there another way? Is there another possibility out there that you just can't see, right? Maybe you've just never been exposed to it or you don't know it exists yet. But maybe if we go looking for it together, if you take my hand and together we go look for the possibility of something different than what we're talking about, what might we find? What might we find? What avenues might we start stumbling down that we didn't even know that we could? What possibilities will we start to embrace because we know that they're there now? And what pathways will we stop walking down? Because now we recognize that we are standing in the same place over and over and over again, even though we're walking down the street, because it's the same street, same street, same street. So the echo chamber doesn't give us a place of comfort and security like we think it does, but it sure keeps us stuck. And it sure keeps us validating the experiences that keep us stuck. Now, you want support. That is not what an echo chamber is. Support is, I see you, I hear you, I want to go with you down that road together with you, right? But if you start to veer off into something strange and something that is completely out of character, I'm going to make sure it's because you want to be veering off into it because your character might be changing and not because you're being pulled towards it because something in you is needing fulfillment that you're not getting. That's how people devolve into red pill. That's how people devolve into the alt pipelines, right? Because they have a need that nobody recognized. And so instead of saying, hey, listen, whoa, hey, I have a need here that is not being fulfilled. And instead of finding a healthy way or having a healthy conversation or trying to find a way to figure out what it is that I really need, I'm just going to let myself be led down this path because it's the path of least resistance and everybody over there saying the exact same thing. That's what happens. We're not going to do that. We're going to get out of our echo chambers. We're going to not isolate ourselves only in places that make us feel the most comfortable because then we get nowhere really fast. And the years just pass and we're still standing there. I watch a lot of content when I'm watching content. I watch a lot of content about, especially right now, and then probably for the past 3 or 4 years, of women who are moving their lives outside of the United States because my dream, my goal, one of my goals is to move my family at some point out of the United States. And so I consume that content for a couple of reasons. One, to see it happening, right? Because everyone wants to see examples of the thing that you are hoping for. But also because I did not grow up in a time or in a group of people in a culture where we did that, where people got up and relocated their families outside of a country. We move states, you might move your house, right? You might grow up in a few different houses. You might even grow up in a few different states if your family got really wild. You might have left the state that you were born in and you're living in a new state. But you probably didn't leave the country unless something moved you out of the country. But there are other stories of cultures that people move all the time. They pick up and they relocate their entire lifeline and they start their stories someplace else. And so I watch stories of families who are navigating what it looks like to leave one culture, move into another culture, not to co opt, not to subsume another culture underneath theirs, but to find a way to accommodate and in some ways assimilate a new reality into their own reality. One of the things that that requires is getting out of an echo chamber that says that's not possible. That we don't do things like that. Our kind don't do things like that. Our family doesn't do things like that, or our whatever doesn't do things like that. In order to make that kind of leap, you have to be willing to step outside of the echo chamber that's trying really hard to keep you stagnant, to keep you safe, quote unquote safe, but really just to keep you stagnant. So when I watch the videos of the families, especially I watch families because I have a family, um, and I see the struggles, because it's not, it's not without its struggle, but nothing is without struggle. That's the point. But I see the struggles, but I also see the shifting, the conversations. Oops, sorry. The conversations that have to be had, the mindset shifts that have to come with believing that the world is your block, not just the state, the country, the city, the town, but the entire world is your block. So if you just move down the block, right? Like, so on one end of your block is California, but maybe mid block is Paris, right? Maybe it's France. Maybe three quarters down the block is Ghana. And maybe at the other end of the block is Austria. And maybe around the corner is Colombia, right? So when you start thinking about the block of your life as bigger than the block that you live on, your mindset changes, your perspective on what's possible changes. Now, I'm really fortunate in that my mind has always been kind of but what else can I do? I- If you don't tell me no, I'm going to assume there's an implied yes that I can try this. And maybe I'll run into a brick wall, which I've done, and I'll have to come back and start again. But I've never been of the mindset that you aren't allowed to try. And I thank my parents for that. But a lot of us don't have that gene, that bug, implanted in us that said, "Hey, listen, you can go beyond the streetlights. There's a life beyond the streetlights. There's a life out there that you won't ever find out if you don't go because our echo chamber keeps us closed." In under the guise of keeping us safe, it offers security and stagnation. So here's what I want you to do. It is time to get curious about your life right now. Not in the I'm going to go out and interrogate all the people around me. You don't have to. You know that that there are certain pathways that your life is going, and they're going that way because the people around you support that path. When you start talking to people who are like, I support your path, but I also want to see us do this, this, and this. Can we do this, this, and this? You're going to start gravitating towards those people when you're ready. And I'm asking you to get ready. So there's a time and a place to think about things and navel gaze, as my friend Jen used to say, contemplate, the inner workings. And then there's a time to say, okay, what am I going to do now? What am I going to act on? What am I going to do? What is one action that I'm going to take today, right now, that is going to allow me to move a step closer to a path that I don't know anything about, but I know it's out there. When you make the decision to ask why and push back against the things that are making you comfortable, then you're going to invite conversations in from people that you may not have expected, who are going to come to you and bring you messages and speak into that space that you've created, that void where there's nothing yet, because you haven't built it yet. It's not there yet because you haven't built it yet, but you're building it now because now you're asking why. And you're not going to let people who are going to be like, why are you asking me this question? Like, what do you mean you want to move to um, South Africa? What do you mean you want to move to Mexico? What are you talking about? Like, why would you want to do that in the midst of all that's happening? No place is really safe. You're going to start saying, you know what? You are absolutely correct in your assessment of what you are saying, but you are not right about my world. And now the conversations are no longer in an echo chamber, right? Now they're just a conversation that you're having, but they're not the ruling conversation that determines what you're going to do next. And that's where I want you to get to, is to get to conversations that help you figure out the next best step in your transition, and not the ones that keep you standing on the bridge, continually believing you are safe when what you're actually doing is just being stagnant. I hope that this message finds whomever it needs to find today, and that you believe that it is time to ask why. Why is my life looking like this? What is it that I can do next? How do I get there? And what is the next step? What is the next thing I can do today to get me to get there? To get me to get there. If you're looking for a community to have great conversations, just hang out, be a part of something on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, we take a tea break together. Come join us, where we sometimes talk about important things, and sometimes we talk about chocolate milk, or excuse me, hot chocolate, which is what we talked about this past week. But it's a place to build community of like-minded women who are also really invested in not negotiating away their peace, which is what the rules are. So if you're part of this community, you already know what the rules are. And one of the rule number one is scrolling on the screen. Come join us Tuesdays live on YouTube. Say hi, grab your favorite libation, and enjoy a stress-free, drama-free time where you can connect with people who may think, talk, and act differently than you, but may actually push you to get where you want to be. Finally, the Life Reimagined workshop is coming back. We're opening it up for November. This time we'll take 10 lovely women who are ready to ask some very important questions about what 2026 is going to bring. In fact, I might have to make that larger than 10. I'll think about it. We had a small blip, but we're back. So if you're interested, get on the wait list for Life Reimagined workshop that is coming in November. If you've taken it before, join us again. If you've taken it before, spread the word. It's time to talk about the future, and the future is literally tomorrow. This is Dr. Sasheen with Women in Transition podcast, and please click like, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you know because you know they need it. Until next time, bye everybody.